Welcome to Promo Kitchen's newest educational series, Meet Us in the Kitchen. The kitchen is where industry leaders and independent minds come together to whip up a feast of fresh ideas. The volunteers at Promo Kitchen are thrilled to serve you a brand new educational series that's packed with relevant bite-sized insights and actionable strategies. Join other promo pioneers and watch these merch misfits spice up the conversation. Oh, I don't even know where to start. I'm so happy, so excited, and so lucky to be surrounded with awesomeness. I am surrounded with greatness. I really am. And you know what? If you ever get an email from Brenda Spears, in her tagline, it says, I think it's to say grateful or gratitude. Brenda, I was just looking at that and I was like, you know what?
Oh,
With
yeah, with
gratitude,
gratitude.
thank you. With gratitude, I am here today. So thankful to have Robert Fivash, president and co-owner of Brand Fuel, also a Promo Kitchen chef. Brenda Spears, CEO of BuzzTag and founder of the Ripple Collective, also a Promo Kitchen sous chef. Some asterisks are by her name, and there could be some pending news, but I'm going to leave that for another day. And then Denise Taschereau, CEO and co-founder of Fairware Promotional Products. Robert, Brenda, Denise, oh my heavens, as I normally say, oh my tacos, but this is not about the tacos. This is about the three of you. Welcome. So excited.
Awesome. Glad
Yeah,
to be
Jay,
here.
thank you.
Guess what? We're all pretending to be in Robert's kitchen right now. Can you feel it? Do you feel the vibe?
Well,
Robert invited us over. Let's just imagine we went to a cool
No,
concert.
he's baked us cookies.
He's baked us cookies. He's offered us adult beverages or other things. And Robert, you're such a great host.
oh,
Who
well,
knew?
thank you. I mean, I was just don't ask what's in there. We've got there are all kinds of potential things that we could answer there, but like we just don't go there. So
We just don't ask. Don't ask.
everything's on the
It's not a
table
wine stuff. It's
except
not a dungeon. It's nothing weird.
I'm not going to tell you.
He said, don't ask. I guess that's partly why we're here today, is to learn to say no, which is a challenge. So I am thrilled because of the topic and because of the guest. The topic that we've kind of wrestled with, and Robert was so gracious to kind of help me pull some of this together, was, I guess it's a personal growth thing, but learning to say no. If we had to put a title on this, learning to say no. And of course, we could do some quick searches and find out what this all means. But more important than the definition is what it means to the three of you, and sometimes I guess to the four of us. But personal growth, developing the ability to set boundaries, remembering our goals, prioritizing our needs, confidently declining requests that don't align with our goals or don't align with our well-being. So there's real reasons and important reasons to say no. But ultimately, I hope that we can get on to some specific industry examples, right? Rather than just the broader empowering ourselves to manage our time, to manage effectively our energy to our teams and our tribes. That's why I know it's important. But so let's start with, if you don't mind, all of you, just what was your take when you saw the title, when you were looking at this personal growth idea, this concept of learning to say no? Well, let's go with Brenda, then Denise, then Robert.
Sure. My initial response was, of course, that I wanted to help out and join Jay in this. And then I wrote back and I said, are you sure you want to invite me onto this thing? Because I am a notorious over volunteer. I have a really hard time saying no. And I was explaining earlier to Jay, a bunch of years ago, my husband told me, he's like, Brenda, if you always raise your arm every time someone wants a volunteer, you're no longer just a volunteer, you're a lightning rod. That said, it's who I am. I love it, and I wouldn't change any of it.
Well, of course, we're so grateful that you do volunteer. We need your light, your energy, your insight. So thank you for all the volunteer work you've done, at least that I've been grateful enough to be on the receiving end. So thank you, Brenda. Denise, what do you think? What do you think about this idea of saying no? Is it empowering? Does
Oh,
it create
yeah.
anxiety and fear? What's your take?
It's not all of the things, Jay. When I first got it, so I was traveling. I was on a family trip last week. I was seeing family in Toronto and taking my youngest to go check out a university there. and Nicole had slacked and said, hey, does anybody want to, be on this thing and talk about saying no? And here's some ideas. And she actually generated some ideas. And so I feel like I got them fed to me a little bit in terms of what was first came to mind. I think for me, I think about it in buckets, right? And one is, saying no in terms of the sales cycle and the client relations and the like, what do we want to be and who do we want to work with? And like, how does the art of saying no like fold into that? I thought a lot about it in terms of just day-to-day work, and not so much the like operations, but just me personally, like how do I say no, and what, you know, getting in the habit or the practice of asking myself, like, is this the right thing for me to be doing? Like, yes or no, and having the courage to actually answer it and then jettison the thing that's like, no, this is not what I should be doing right now. Like, say no, move on, So I thought a little bit in those two buckets. Like one was really about the brand and the client experience and sales experience. And then one was just about like coming into work every day and understanding what's important and what's not important. And I think the power of saying no is hugely important to that.
Hugely important. Well,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you brought up the buckets. We'll talk a little bit about that. Great insight. Mr. Five Ash, the OG, the original gangster of Promo Kitchen. You thought I forgot about that. We were talking before we hit record. We think it's 12 years now, the start of the 12th year. I'll have to do my math later and apologize to everybody. But Robert, you have seen this ship from its early days, from what it was, just a little idea of a bunch of ragtags, misfits, renegades jumping into the pool with no idea how to swim. Probably should have said no then, but you didn't. Thank God you didn't. And here today, still very involved, still very much a part of our team, our executive team, our driving force, and so grateful to have you. But what do you think? This is partly one of your, hopefully, an important topic that you think about. I'm sure you've done some TED Talks in the Virginia Beach area on the
Hey,
art of saying no.
hey, you are like, I mean,
Did I overhype it? Did I overbuild it?
you
What
would be
happened?
disappointed. Is that like the goal here? Let's disappoint Robert's answer because like this is beautiful. No, it is an interesting topic, and I don't think about it all that often, but I'm glad you wanted to discuss it because I do think it's really important. I was on a call, as all of us these days, right? We're like jumping from one thing to the next, which I think is very instructive to your question, right? And so this person that I was talking to is one of the best designers in our industry, like just literally the best as far as I'm concerned. And it says yes to everything, right? And can't say no. And so the joy of designing gets replaced by constantly being behind and constantly wondering whether you've said yes to all of these things that you potentially should have said no to. And so when I think of like saying no in our industry, like we could all be very, could open this up to lots of things. But when I think about it for the industry, it's like, number one, it has to do with like saying no or yes to certain clients and no or yes to certain opportunities. And so the no or yes to certain clients is probably the bigger piece in terms of like you go through this world once, right? And can you live with the yeses that you've delivered? Can you live with the types of clients you've said yes to, in terms of do they fit with your values? And then the second one is more of the day to day, similar to what I was describing earlier. Like it's much easier to say yes than it is to say no, right? So the hardest thing is to say no to these things because you're going to end up in a world where you're not nearly as good as you can be. You're not nearly as happy as you can be. You got to say no to some of these opportunities. So there's the big picture clients. Can you live with what they do and does that fit with you? And you got to say no to the smaller opportunities. They just don't make sense most of the time.
Yeah, that's great insight. I think we've all struggled with that. Maybe it's a struggle, maybe it's a fear, maybe it's a concern that we are going to appear uncooperative, or we're going to appear, with this air of betterment, like, well, I'm not going to do that little work, right? That's for somebody else to do. And maybe that's not even real. Like I said, fear usually isn't, but I also know my 2 cents on this. I'll take it from the I'm sitting here in front of 3 presidents, 3 CEOs, 3 co-founders, right? If I were working for any of you, sometimes I feel the pressure to say no to a superior or to an owner or to a CEO. And so sometimes that's a different dynamic, is the having the trust factor. Maybe there's enough communication, there's enough clarity on what's the real priority for me to be able to tell Brenda or Denise or Robert, no, hey, no for me, but maybe we should try to find somebody else to take the lead on this. That's not easy. That's
Mm.
kind of scary stuff, right?
It's not easy, but we've found at our company that there are lots of opportunities that don't make sense for us, either ethically, if I can, if that's a fair word, or just size wise. And so we've got plenty. That's the beauty of this industry. You've got 30,000 distributors, so to speak, in our world, and lots of them are friends of ours collectively. And so there's always some place where you can refer a piece of business that might not be right for you for various reasons to someone else that might do an amazing job. And so you haven't let down that client or that prospect. You've actually found something that works for them that's better than perhaps you.
Great insight. What's your take on that, Brenda? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We're in an industry where I think we're all at heart nurturers and carers, right? And we love to take care of people. Side by side with that, we're also in an industry where people don't understand our value a lot of the time. And they don't understand how much work, how many people, how much space has to go into all of these projects. So for us, we're still, fairly smallish. And it's been hard for me to find that way to say no to a lot of these smaller clients. But in the end, there are a lot of other fellow peers. We're all in competition together. So to be able to have solid referral points where we can send them, so at least you're still providing that solution and supporting the person who's coming to you without going against the values of your own company.
Just kind of jumping in on that, and for us, Fairware, obviously we're a really impact values led brand. We always have been. And, one of the things that we've codified as an organization, and we're actually working to kind of take it to the next level, is who we will and won't work with. So we have sectors that we won't work with. We won't work with the oil and gas sector. So if we see a lead comes in and if more than 50% of their revenue is derived from fossil fuels, we won't work with them. And we tell them why. We don't work with military, we don't work with police, we don't work, there's a lot of people we don't work with. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, you remember somebody saying to me, like, wow, you're taking the path of most resistance in your business. But it really is about values alignment. And we're signatories to something called the Clean Creatives, which codifies that commitment around oil and gas. And what's been interesting, Brenda, to your point, is it is one of the best examples in our company of how we live our values, and it's really emboldened our employees to kind of raise the flag when something feels like not quite right. And so, we've had scenarios where an organization comes to us to do a project and staff are like, you know what, they've got a really bad track record of being like homophobic, like that it's not a good fit for us. Or, this project that, just came in is backed by Saudi money. And like, I don't know that that's a values fit. Like it opens up these conversations, and it kind of opens up conversations with our clients. And, I was out for dinner last night with a couple of Vancouver distributor owners. We had a nice dinner together, and we had a situation a couple years ago where a lead came in and they were coal based, and we said no. And I passed them on to one of those owners who just I knew came from a mining background. I knew his family was involved in mining. His grandfather had immigrated from Italy to work in this mine. It became $1 million opportunity, and we were joking last night that he owes me dinner for the rest of his life, which he does. But it's like, there's a level of it where it's like, wow, it's like last year was one of our hardest years. We were down, and to have kind of made that decision knowing it was a huge opportunity. Like, those are the things that sort of shore up, like, saying no can be really hard sometimes, but it like codifies your values and it just really cements who you are. So sometimes it's hard, but it's like, the big no's I think are incredibly important, and making those transparent with your team when you do come across, like, to your point, Robert, like a kind of an ethical decision. Like, I think those should be really public team-based decisions, because they just help people know who they work for. And
And
yeah,
Denise, can I ask
anyways.
you something on that? Because we've struggled with that a little bit. Like we've never said no to guns and tobacco and that kind of thing. Oil and gas is one that we more recently said no to, but we did come across a situation. It wasn't a recycler. It was a huge network of like companies that like essentially burn trash. And I think they actually came to us because of our B Corp certification
Yeah.
and wanted to sort of, greenify their image and that kind of thing. And so I'm curious how you would handle something like this. I think they
Yeah.
thought that we, number one, could sort of help, you know, detarnish their image. But I also think, and I'm not sure here, I think that they thought that we might be a good fit because we actually potentially could change their culture by the products that the merch that we recommended
Hmm.
and have it be sustainable and that kind of thing. I'm less sure of that one than I am.
I think there's like sometimes it's cut and dry and often it's not. And we come across that, good example for us would be the largest Indigenous owned, First Nations owned consulting firm up north, and all their clients are oil and gas. And we're like, okay, we have a commitment to reconciliation. We love what these folks are doing. They're like driving huge community economic development in a community that needs it. Do we say yes or no? And in those situations, we'll have a conversation. In that case, we said yes. And it's like, I think sometimes you got to just sniff it out and see what feels right, and know that it's super gray. There are some black and white scenarios, and, articulate those, and then just like trust the gut, trust the team. And it could be right, it could be wrong. But having the conversation is probably the most important thing, I would say, irrespective of where you land on it. You know,
Fair.
Great insights. That's tough. You guys are making some pretty serious decisions at the top. I'm glad it's the three of you. That is enlightening. So I'd like to get a little bit more granular on this, if we could, some specific industry examples, keep digging in on this, and what's your take as it relates to the merchandise, the actual, the product, whether that be does it fit in those same
fidget
values?
spinner, a stress ball and a fidget spinner.
Yeah, Danny Rosen's favorite. Give me all the stress balls. We should all gather them up at the upcoming show, fill them in a box, and send them to him. No, kidding. Well,
Oh,
there are going to be
that would be
products
funny.
that would be funny, and say, "Dear Mr. Landfill." But what do we do? How do you? Is it the same recipe, Denise? Is it the same saying no to a customer like saying no to a product?
I'd be curious what like how Brenda and Robert
Yeah,
approach it.
let's.
Yeah.
I'm curious for all three, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's a matter of educating the customer, explaining why you don't feel that's a good product, why, and how it's impacting the environment, how they can use their budget more wisely for something that gives a better perception of their company. And it's not just about the product, it's what their brand is saying by handing that out to people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we tout ourselves as what we call a challenger agency. So the idea behind that is simply we're not just order takers. We're actually going to give you our thoughts on the proposed transaction, so to speak. And so the old adage is why are stress balls really the right choice here, or the banjo shaped flash water or whatever it might be. Like you can go through all the silly things, but I mean I think the main question is when you talk to these folks, like if you were at a trade show and you had limited space in your bag to take stuff home, like would this stuff end up in the trash? And if with a stress ball, the answer is probably yes.
Hmm.
And so that's a pretty good litmus test for being that challenger with the
Hmm.
particular client. I think most folks would agree that yes, that might be what you did last year. It might be the easy choice. It might make sense. It might be cheaper, but it's probably going to end up in the trash. And that's kind of the litmus test as far as I'm concerned.
I think we spend a lot of time trying to have the alternatives, because it is so hard. Like people are like, I need the sub $1, the sub $2, like mass merchandise giveaway, and you can advise all you want and have the conversations about strategy and brand fill and all the things, but you still have those buyers that are like, yeah, no, I get it. I need something for 75 cents. So it's like it is this constant struggle. So for us, we try to invest in like finding those cool low cost things that are, whether they're useful or whether they just have a good end of life story. They're recyclable in like most communities in North America. Like we try to find those sorts of things, and like stress balls and fidget spinners, like those things, like they are kind of the thing that's like the, people joke about, but it's like so many companies are debating that in our industry. Like, what do we do when someone asks for a piece of crap, essentially? And not to be, like not to be dismissive, but it's like, there are roles for that. So we work with a lot of folks that are working with, the Autism Foundation, the Brain Trauma Center. Like there's scenarios where like that stuff actually has a use, it has utility, right? And it's like, I think, I kind of joke, I probably shouldn't say crap, but I joke about it. Like there's things that in one context are brand fill, but in another context work, and I think I can find in my heart a use for a stress ball if it's in the right context, right? So, and I think that's part of the problem is just, if you're at a parade and you're handing out stress balls, you're just going to be littering the parade route, right? But if you're at a hospital, like maybe it works, right? So I think part of it too is understanding the context and helping our clients understand the context. But I think it's an existential threat to the industry if we don't all collectively wrap our heads around this. And it's something, if I put my board hat on, that we're thinking about a lot, is how do we uplift the industry to have the courage to have these conversations and to, to all be the challenger brands, and emulate what Robert and Danny have done so well.
Love that term, by the way. I don't know where you guys got it. Challenger brand, challenger agency. That's highly marketable. I don't know
Yeah,
if
is
you're
that
aware of that.
trademarked, Robert? Is that
Yeah, I
trademarked?
was thinking the same thing. I was doing a Google search today
Everything
just
has
to
been
find out.
stolen. I'll admit that. I don't recall from where, but
Okay, so let's go one level. Let's go one level deeper, just for giggles. So we're not making fun of stress balls or stress relievers specifically, but that one comes up between the four of us. So, but what about it when a customer says, "Okay, I want an apparel item," and let's just any T-shirt, okay, the ubiquitous T-shirt, and you even have a T-shirt that is well made and has sustainable roots and checks a lot of the boxes for doing the right thing and making sure it's well made, right? And then you think you're done, and your decorator, your screen printer, decides to get that bucket of plastisol out and smear that all over the screen and start cranking out shirts. Are we going to that level? Are we going to say no? Are we going to find out that they are not affiliated or working with Blue Sign or working with others to figure out where these chemicals are made, and if the button on the shirt was made sourced right? Like, at what level are we going to curate this for our customer base?
And at what level can we, right? How much of it
Yeah, that's a
can
good
we
question.
affect? It's that whole production line of getting things done for your customer, as we all know, is incredibly challenging. So, where do you draw those lines? Great question. And then also, that affects the end cost of the product. Is the customer willing to pay more for something that is more sustainably produced along the way? And then, just on that line too of cost, people just want the cheapest whatever forever, but educating them about, okay, how many people are going to be at this event? You don't have to provide something for every single person who's there. So reduce the quantity, create that, churn of conversation and people talking about who's got the cool thing, and then run out. Right? So they're still talking about you, and then plan it out through your 3 days.
Yeah.
So each day you're running out, and then people are seeking you out and they want to have those conversations.
Cool idea. Create the demand, so to
and
speak.
it's not always just about the product, obviously. I mean, one thing that we talked about doing that we haven't done, my guess, Denise, you guys have done this perhaps, but something we all should consider. The idea was going back through like the last year's worth of sales and noting how many times we overnighted something or expedited shipping, and to go back into the details of that order and figure out why it had to be overnighted. Could it have gone ground? That kind of thing. Those are the types of conversations that you can have with the client, in your QBR or end of year meeting or what have you, where it's like, hey, if we had talked about doing the quarterly calendar of events or what have you, if we had actually done that, perhaps we could have saved $4,000 in extra freight, but we also would have reduced the carbon footprint of that order without even talking about product at all by such and such. So that's an exercise that it might be an interesting business opportunity for some company to kind of
Yeah,
do.
we do a fair bit of that. I mean, we measure our greenhouse gas inventory every year, kind of have been doing since I think 2009. And in the last 2 years, one of our big pushes has been on client education. So in fact, I'm kind of got a draft big, kind of very long blog post on this. But what we've done is we use Common SKU, and in all of our templated emails, we talk about the carbon impact of air shipping, and we talk about timelines, and we talk about it through the lens of cost saving and carbon saving. And so we're trying to all through the organization, through the touch points. And I remember it was a few months ago, hearing one of our sales reps on a call saying, hey, do you know that it's 10 times the, carbon impact or whatever it is on to airship? If we can get this decision by Friday, we're going to be able to ship by ground. It's going to save you some money.
Yeah.
And it's just more values aligned. And I was just okay, wiping the tears from my eyes, but because it is, a stated priority of ours and a goal in our impact report is to start to educate folks. So I think those are some of the things we can do at the team level. And to bring it back to the plastisols, for us, we do ask, are they failing free? Are they, but again, I think that's where industry education comes in, and why I'm passionate about being on the board, and why I'm passionate about some of the priorities right now, because not only, obviously sustainability is a priority, but just professionalizing the industry and modernizing our education delivery at PPAI. And when I think about it, I'm like, okay, what are all the questions? What is the benchmark for doing well in the print industry? What are the questions we should ask our printers? And if we're all asking our printers, then the printers are going to change if they need to change, or you're going to find out they're doing awesome things if they're already doing awesome things. So I think that's where the industry can really democratize some of this and lay it out in a way that we're pushing, big movement at the, we're all kind of moving in the right direction
Mhm.
around some of these things. Because I think if it's just Fairware and Brand Fuel and BuzzTag, it gets lost in the noise. But I think if we can coalesce around some of these ideas, whether it's digital transformation, sustainability, whatever it might be, it's to me, that's how change is going to happen in the industry.
Big time. Love that answer. Yeah, it wasn't a trick question, but it comes up to me a lot because I get it from the manufacturing side. So
Mm,
here at Equipment Zone, we're the number one reseller of DTG printers and DTF printers. So we get the question often about,
yeah.
are your inks water-based? Are they
Mm,
sustainable? Are they
hmm
Oekotech certified? Are they
hmm
GOTS certified? Are they, and you
Yeah.
hear all these
All the things.
certifications and
Yeah.
all the things, and we're getting that question a lot more now than we ever used to. And so, which I think is good. I think it's a good thing. I just, I just know at some level, we still have this giant status quo. And I think that's what I kind of wanted to end on is if we could ask about this, how do we encourage the status quo to say no? Or how do we shake it up so that we're saying yes more often to the right things and no
Hmm.
more often to the wrong things from an industry, from a broader view, maybe. And that might be saying no to cheap plastic shit. That might saying no to logos on stuff. It's been one of my chief complaints of our industry forever. I'm not taking shots at any particular vendor, but can't we do more? Shouldn't we do more? Aren't we, if we're going to be a challenger agency, to use Robert's words, shouldn't we do more than just logos on stuff? And yet everything we see, even in the technology platforms that I've been looking at lately, about how fast it is to create an e-com store and look, you can add your client's logo and boom, it populates on 4 million products. And it's like, yes, it does. So
Yeah.
how do we say no to the status quo and become those rebel renegades? Maybe the three of you have, but what can we do to carry the torch to others? I'm really encouraged by everything you've said so far, and I think you guys have been doing this for more than a couple of months now. So just keep going. Is that the message? Keep pushing forward.
Well, I've been really excited about Liz Wimbush and her role for PPAI and just how that education now is starting to come around. And, just by having her in that role, I think that's going to continually start to bleed through the organization, which will then
Mhm.
help everybody else.
I totally agree that is going to help top down. But what about bottom up? What about, truth be told, can we afford to wait for PPAI to get organized, to have the committee, to
Yeah,
run through
for sure.
to run it up the board, to run it up the flag, and then wait another year till that education comes out?
Yeah, no, we all got to be doing it ASAP. I think celebrating
Mhm.
the creatives, like I think that, Robert, you and I were, at a meeting together this fall in Europe, and they brought Bobby Leahy over to speak. He gave a presentation that I think some of us have seen or elements of it, and I think everyone in the industry should be forced to watch like one of Bobby Leahy's presentations on like the future of merchandise and the emotional connection and like just the creative stuff that's happening. And the more we storytell around that, I think the more we're going to get innovative young people into the industry because it's so cool and inspiring. And I think we don't always do a great job of showcasing beyond the logo on stuff,
I think,
celebrating beyond the logo on
I
stuff.
think you're
Mhm.
exactly right. I mean, we were on a call right before this. So we've got this strategic plan to sort of double sales in 5 years, and we were like, how do we get there, and what are the missing pieces? And one of the key ones for us was making sure that we focus on creative because we've had really good in-house creative over at certain times over the years, but like not right now. Like we do a pretty good job of it, but we're mostly, we have some really good in house, but we're outsourcing a lot of it. But like we could be doing so much better on that front, and I think we're going to recommit to that. The other thing I just wanted to say, Denise, in terms of Europe, you know, we're part of this group called IPAG, International Partnership for Premiums and Gifts. Brand Fuel is, and it almost consistently always was the US feels about 5 years behind Europe in terms of sustainability or a focus on sustainability. And with Liz and Denise and others at PPAI making this a focus, I really feel like that range has narrowed to, yeah, I'm not going to put a number on it, but way less than 5 years. And that's really good news. So, Jay, in terms of like, do we have to wait for PPAI? Do we have to wait for this or that? The answer is obviously no, but I think we should all feel really good about the direction that PPAI is going in. And thank you, Denise, for making this a real focus because, as we've all said, another stolen line, sustainability is survivability in this industry, right? I mean, it literally is that we will not be able to do what we do unless we focus more on sustainability. So I'm really excited about the future of the industry and the future of PPAI's leadership in the industry, especially with these wonderful folks at the helm.
Great words of wisdom, great insights. Well, listen, we've reached our time together. This has been a personal growth story for me to lead a little bit and to say yes to these things. It's not easy, but it's so much easier when you have amazing guests. So literally, I have the dream team of folks who have, lucky for me, not said no, said yes to this call. I think we've learned a lot. I think both from the personal growth side, but also to say yes to certain things, to say yes to being willing to grow, being willing to get uncomfortable, and maybe be that rebel with the status quo and learn to help our organizations, our teams to grow. So thank you so much to each of you. Brenda, Denise, Robert, is there anything else you'd like us to say before we? And by the way, Robert some chips, some guac, something. I mean, next time, bro, you got to bust out whatever's behind that door. If it's, as long as it's legal, let's
I had like
giddy up.
3 family members trying to like cross my path. I was like, no.
Because there's some sweet swag back there, or what's going on?
Exactly.
But thank you again, Denise. Thank you so much, Brenda and Robert. It's been an awesome discussion about this empowering, I think, of saying no to certain things, saying yes to other things for the better development of our personalities, ourselves, our teams, and obviously the industry at whole. So with that, say everybody bye. Bye, everybody.
Peace out. See you
Thank you.
later.
Peace out.